I'm going to get our next set of speakers. I'll continue to introduce them. So the next topic is going to be responsible AI in practice, the ethical engine room, where we are how we can implement guardrails, operationalizing ethics under commercial pressure. We are going to have Prachi, Tomar, Sonia, Fereidooni, going to discuss about how teams can be empowered with respect to ethics and ethical pressure index metric. So both of them have some experience, deep experience in the space. Sonia has been pursuing PhD in University of Cambridge, and she has even done a research on usage of LLM in military. And Prachi Tomar is in the technical services side, and she has been working on the AI ethics, and she has been also contributing to multiple technical working groups, which is also contributing to standards. Without much ado, I'll just get them to the stage.
Hello.
Hey, Prachi, give me a minute. I'll just get Sonia also.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, guys. And I'll over to you.
Great. Hi, Sonia.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a presentation prepared, but if you want to go first, please.
No, please, you go first.
Okay. Cool. Let me give me a second. I have a presentation here. It's here. Share this. Hopefully you can see it.
Yes, ma'am.
And you can see the full thing, right?
No, yeah, now we can see the full screen. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's great. Let me minimize that and cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I think what I want to talk about here and the goal really for my presentation today is that we start thinking about these AI metrics, AI models, these, in the ethical space specifically as more of an active thought than just a passive thing. Because I think we do this a lot of times where we hear something, we read an article, we go to these summits and these conferences, and then we never think about it again. So I think my goal here for everyone here is that we actually start thinking about this actively and then actually start practicing it and see how we can actually bring it to the day-to-day level. So, instead of having these high level aspirations about, the values, the ethical values about how to use AI, and bringing it more to a day-to-day accountability. So, yeah. So responsible AI in practice. So I think, see so many organizations who have responsible AI principles. We've seen them posted on their LinkedIn from the day ChatGPT was launched to big PR releases. But we really don't see them being enforced as consistently. Are they unable to enforce them consistently, or are they just not taking those steps to enforce them consistently is a completely different conversation. But the reality is that, we see them say, oh, we care about this, and here's a huge slide deck and a compliance handbook that we're going to be using, and then never actually look at it ever again. So ethics shouldn't really live only in policy decks. It needs to be deeply embedded in product workflows. It's not part of, if it's not part of our daily work, if you're not actually thinking about it every day as you do every step of your work, then it's not real. So the goal here is to make ethics as natural and routine as any other, unit test or security scan that you do in your day-to-day work. So from principles to pipelines. We've all seen responsible AI announced publicly, but those ideals often get lost. When you're actually coding, when you're looking at models, you're making decisions, you never actually think about those ethical things until it's long done. And then it's an afterthought of, oh, we've done this. Let's do like a once over and give it a check. And then you never look at it again. Instead of, you build everything, you plan everything, and then you think, oh yeah, the ethical perspective at the end, just before that launch. but is that enough? So again, saying we really need to embed these ethics directly into development. So that means creating ethic gates in CI/CD pipelines, automating fairness checks in our QA checks, and then incorporating ethical considerations into planning and design. So we need to think about these ethics from the very get-go. And I'll talk about more how each person in the organization can take responsibility for it later. But these ethical constraints must be treated the same way you treat any other non-negotiables in engineering and in security. And it can't just be a review before your launch. It needs to live inside the building process from the very beginning. This leads me to the ethical pressure index. So, when deadlines are tight, teams are under pressure. I think ethical considerations are like the first thing that goes out the window. When you were, and it's not always intentional. Sometimes it's just a consequence of how incentives are structured. And sometimes it's a consequence of worrying about, oh, if we don't meet these deadlines, we will be punished, even if it means, you're not actually being transparent about it, even if it means you're not actually using good data, even if it means that you're not actually looking at and rooting out bias from your data. So, you know, so that's why we kind of need something like this ethical pressure index where we can quantify and track ethical friction so that it helps us answer how often our launch is delayed due to unresolved risks. How many ethical concerns are raised and dismissed? How much of this is becoming a form of ethical debt? Just like we have technical debt, we also have this ethical debt. So by visualizing these trade-offs, the same way we do with technical risk, we turn these gut feelings into actual data that can make room for more informed, resilient decisions. So empowering like all these, responsible AI teams, and I'll talk about how, we can embed them into each team, but often at the moment when companies make these responsible AI teams, they're usually just for a show. We have this strike team that goes into everything after the fact. So often what happens is that these RAI teams, operate in isolation, and then they're brought in later or sidelined in decisions. What that leads to is often they don't even have that much visibility into what is actually happening, and that just makes this model not work. So for responsible AI to succeed, these teams need to be embedded directly into your product teams, your marketing teams, your engineering workflows. They should have authority, not just influence, to be able to say, oh, we can't do this, we're not doing this, without having any pushback. So, and that could include the ability to even delay or even block certain launches when it doesn't meet the ethical standards and criteria. But beyond structure, we need a cultural shift. Ethical dissent needs to be rewarded instead of being punished. People should feel safe, and I think that's been a big part of this conference all day, is that people need to feel safe and people need to feel supported, to feel like, oh, we can speak up when we see that something is wrong, when something happening is wrong. That's how you build long-term integrity into your systems and teams. So commercial pressure and ethics. I don't just mean to, again, echoing what Varun said, I don't mean to just be giving a monologue. So I do want to open up the floor to ask questions as to what do you think these percentages and numbers are? There's a little bit of a hint over there, but what do you think these percentages mean? Anything in the chat, and please feel free to just unmute yourself and chime in if you have any thoughts on what this means.
It looks, I think the ethical rollbacks looks very realistic, Prachi.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and explain each of them, right? So what happened, what this slide really shows is, so the speed to market. 80% of decisions prioritize speed. And then only 50% prioritize reputational risk. What that ends up doing is that 30% of the launches are delayed due to issues. 20% of those launches face regulatory fines. This is even when those regulations are in place, that 20% of them still face those fines because of how much they value speed. And then 15% ends up causing product rollbacks due to ethical issues. So what this really goes to show is that it's time we treat ethics as not just this moral high ground, but we have to treat this as risk mitigation and reputation protection, not just some overhead that, oh, we do it, we check it, and then we move on. So yeah, coming back to this, RAI teams. So ethical outcomes are rarely the result of a single decision or just one person. They're shaped by every team that touches the project. It could be the product designer who is, making everything, they control the visibility of the UI, what needs to go in there, how accessible is it? It's like the sales managers who are, making sure that teams shape what's promised. Marketers influence how a system is perceived, and then engineers who are implementing the actual logic. But everyone affects the outcome. They're all touching this project. So responsible AI can't live only in the ML team or the RAI team. It needs to be everybody. I think, in all the companies, HR makes you do this mandatory training every year where you just go in, you do a bias training, or you do like the cybersecurity training. Why is it that we do those trainings for cybersecurity and bias, but not something as important as AI? Having said that, it's pretty new, relatively new to the market, but I think that's what is needed. Everybody is responsible because when it comes to if people have dealt with it in cybersecurity specifically, I think you will see that in cybersecurity they ask you this question at the end of it, where who is responsible for the security of the company's data? Does anyone know the answer to it? I might have given it away already.
Is it the company themselves?
No, it's it's every individual. Every individual in the company is responsible for the security of the company. Because one slip and that's the soft spot for any hacker to get in. But that's how we also need to treat AI. You slip once and then you have to deal with the repercussions way after, rooting out what went wrong. So yeah, it's not just about having one team that's just kind of safeguarding all of it. I think it kind of lives in all of us, in every decision that we make throughout while we're working on something. So yeah, it needs ownership, and it needs to be shared across the company. The product, engineering, design, marketing, beyond, all the teams need to take ownership. We can't build ethical system unless everyone sees themselves as part of that system. So yeah, just reflecting on that, you see a lot of theatrics being played out, but is anyone actually doing it? But what we need to really do is reframe ethics for what really it is which is infrastructure. Ethics is infrastructure. And it's working when you don't see it, when it's invisible. I'll give you a funny example, which is, say someone's using a dandruff shampoo. I promise I have a point. Say someone's using a dandruff shampoo, and you say, "Oh my God, why are you using a dandruff shampoo? Your hair looks great." That's the point. The hair looks great because they're using the shampoo. It's not that they don't need the shampoo. That's That's basically what this infrastructure needs to be. If it's working great, it's going to be invisible, but that doesn't mean that we don't need it. It doesn't mean that, you know, it's everything collapses without it. But it's invisible when it's in place and functioning how it should be. So it's foundational to building systems that are resilient, adaptable, and trustworthy. Ethics isn't about slowing teams down either. We're not saying, and a lot of people today have pointed this out as well, is it's not about stopping innovation. It's not about, stopping AI. I think AI has a bright future. I myself am a very big advocate for AI. But as I think Varun said too in the previous panel, is that doesn't mean that you just let it run wild. So guardrails aren't walls. They're what keep us on the road. They make it possible to scale responsibly. When we treat ethics not as an obstacle, but as a core system, we unlock something powerful, which is the ability to build things we can stand behind. So yeah, just closing on my spiel here. We're looking at how to operationalize responsible AI. So we talked about moving beyond principle into workflows, embedding ethical checks into development pipelines, and tracking where ethical stress accumulates. Because we must figure out what those friction points are and not treat ethical impacts as friction points. So just like we do with bugs or technical debt, we discussed empowering RAI teams with real authority and expanding the scope of responsibility across function. At its core, this is about just designing AI systems that serve the whole society instead of just that one top, the top 1%. Even when, commercial pressure is high. So that takes some scalable, visible, process-driven ethics. It takes you thinking every day, actively, how will this decision impact? How will uploading this file directly to ChatGPT and giving it access impact, the information inside of that file? How does coding using an AI model without putting any input impact? It's often, in cybersecurity, it only became an issue when it became an issue, and it only became talked about when it became an issue, which is, I think everyone's heard here when people started using AI to code. One big thing that happened for multiple people was because AI didn't have all the information, and obviously the people didn't check, and there were no checks around it. Um, there's this person who coded some stuff for the company, and the AI included the API keys to be available publicly in the code when it got published, which exposed the keys, the sensitive API keys to pretty much anybody. That's the only point when we started actually talking about it. Like, oh, don't use AI now. Why is it that we talk about it only when something bad has happened? Why don't we actually think about it from the get-go when we're designing even that system? So yeah, thank you so much for, spending some time with me on, thinking about these ethics more, a little bit more actively than passively. I will kind of turn this over to Sonia for any comments on this, and then what you got.
Thank you, Prachi, and it was a very comprehensive one. Over to you, Sonia.
Yeah, thank you, Prachi. That was amazing. I definitely learned a lot, and I personally don't have slides, but I think I want to give the audience maybe more of a simple and radical take on AI and responsible AI. Let me first start off with my journey into why I research AI militarism right now. So previously, I used to work at Google Brain on the T5X and Seek.io team, so open sourcing those two ML and AI development frameworks. Google Brain merged with Google DeepMind when I was there, and so I worked at DeepMind as well. And during that merger, this was right after when the initial ChatGPT craze came out. So March 2023 is when this merger happened. A lot changed that I saw. Um, DeepMind and then also Google as a whole um, change. And it wasn't that it was becoming more mask off. I think the wider company was becoming that. It was more so that AI was being used as an anthropomorphic tool to launder all of Google and also other companies' sort of sins, so to speak. Uh, Basically, all their malpractices and indifference to law, to morality, to human lives. We can see this as a more practical example with Google's complicity in Project Nimbus, right? So this is a project with in which Google has given cloud and AI powered services to the IDF. This was prior to October 7th, 2023. This has been a long-standing deal that Google had with the Israeli Defense Forces to commit a genocide against the Palestinian people for years and years and years. And after the ongoing mass extermination since October 7th, 2023, these tools have just been used for the direct, indiscriminate killing, targeting and killing of Palestinian civilians. And so it's just gotten worse. And a lot of people talk about how we need, these sort of responsible AI guardrails, but my radical take that I want everyone to maybe think about for a little bit, whether you agree with it or disagree with that, is that um, AI was never meant to be responsible in the first place, and it can never be responsible if developed by these big tech giants. Because again, this Project Nimbus has been going on for years and years before the genocide officially, or the mass exterminations officially started October 7th, 2023, before, Sundar Pichai and Google became, right-leaning after Trump's recent re-election, before the ChatGPT craze of November 2022, when it initially went commercial. This happened years and years before that. This initial Project Nimbus started years and years before that. And we've been warned by big leaders in AI, such as Timnit Gebru, since 2020, that this was never the case. That this whole like guise of AI sort of saving the world is just a device for big tech to undermine the working class, number one, and number two, create a sort of surveillance state that undermines a lot of other minorities in the world, and especially people of the global south in multiple different ways. So to close, responsible AI is more of like an oxymoron to me. And I want people to maybe think about that and consider it in that way, that we can never really have responsible AI developed by people that only want to extract and live in a very individualistic culture that only want um, to gain and to profit rather than for care. So yeah, maybe we can open the floor to questions.
Awesome. That's a great provoking question, and very key that you have also experienced working with some of the good names on the early stages, and kind of you are asking this very ethical question, Sonia. Just see, I just enabled everybody to unmute themselves. So in case if you guys have any questions or even discussion points, why Sonia's take is right or not right, please feel free, or even whatever other things which Prachi discussed, go ahead, please shoot. Maybe I'll start, Sonia. So I think, do you think still, is this about politics, really speaking, the right versus left? So I used to be a highly liberal thinker, left-leaning guy for a long time. But even Suchir's incident made me rethink a lot of my political leaning a lot. I'm not now right leaning per se because of this, but if all the so-called liberal left-leaning is working perfectly intact. Why? I think there was a political party which was leaning left and liberal thinking was ruling for a long time. And this happened right in San Francisco, which was a Democrat state and a Democrat governed city. And all these technological developments are right happening here in the city. And despite that, this is happening. So I think the way I think now I am kind of developing my thinking is this is beyond politics, be it right or left. I think there are vested commercial interests, like I think some of these large AI companies, right? For example, OpenAI. So be it Democrat or Republican, left or right, so they are finding their ways out. So, for example, even OpenAI and few of these AI companies are able to make their bridge after this new administration came. So they are able to go build the new bridges. So we thought, okay, there may be some changes happening. So and nothing is changing. So per se, they are able to build new bridges and doing things on their own way. So there is no light in the tunnel is what my understanding or comprehension. What is your take on that, Sydney or Prachi?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like there is no left or right in this, right? I think the left is insidious and the right is very direct about being hostile to the working class and to the people that AI harms the most, right? Like when Sam Altman talks about how OpenAI is here to save, billions and trillions of dollars in the economy, but then there's like leaked internal memos that show that it's actually doing that only by automating a lot of um, working class people's jobs and then also undermining the quality of work that is then put out into the economy. It's just like stealing working class labor, right? And working class pay. That's all it is. It's not a left issue or a right issue. I think it's that's only like making it more jaded in this culture war, which it's not about that. Like in my work with AI militarism and stopping the integration of AI for the automation of warfare in the military, I liaise with, I don't have the luxury to be left or right because I liaise with people from both, uh, historically both sort of leaning, right? So a lot of times when I talk to
The
people
military
on the
complex
right,
is powerful than more than left and right.
more, you think what now? Sorry, it
The
broke up.
military complex is more powerful than middle of left or right, right? I think they have their own
Yeah,
networks.
it's more of a class war than anything. That's absolutely right. But it's also a matter of like when talking to the general public that um may be left or right leaning, or like let's not say in political stance, let's say conservative or more liberal. Um, they both have like lot of things to lose. So, for example, conservative people, they really care about their civil liberties. And when we talk about AI militarism and how it contributes to the surveillance state, right? Like a big leg of military technology is surveillance, right? And when we say you're being surveyed without your consent, your data is being stolen without your consent, that's when they care. A lot of conservative people or like more right-leaning or Republican people care about that. And they're upset about that fact because, again, it infringes upon their civil liberties. And a lot of libertarian values do align with their interests. And so it's about knowing how to talk to them. Whereas for left-leaning individuals, we can, or, people that care, let's say, align themselves with values more about, um, you know, I don't want to say liberalism because it's not, I think neoliberalism, I think, is the worst um, part about militarism and how it like is able to spread in such an insidious way. But I think it's more so people on the left that I can talk to about more of the practical examples of war and say, well, war has like terrible outcomes and we don't want children to starve and die in Gaza. And I think that's usually enough. So there is like multiple different legs of the military complex. It's not just like foreign, it's not just international in conflict settings way abroad. It's, what is called like the imperial boomerang. It comes back and those same technologies are used domestically to torture people, here in America or in the UK.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not the most politically informed, not being from the US originally, but I mean, I think, going back to the point of, commercial pressure really drives, kind of throwing ethics out of the window. To really drive, having that speed to just getting the most work out with the least money spent, and then not, having those protections around it, because all of that does cost money. And what they're really trying to, I guess, mitigate is, how do we just save up as much money as possible, and, kind of not involve as much people as possible. And I think that's what happened in OpenAI's cases too, which you just mentioned, Sonia, where, they're using less and less people, but then the quality is also going down. And then they're saying, oh, it's not, but it is. And that's a whole different debate that's going on there.
Yep, I think I see Purnima's hand.
So
Go ahead.
comes into play is in the current
Yeah,
stage where AI is in, kind of in the nascent stage, whether it is right, left, whichever you look at, the level of awareness, understanding, and the comfort in terms of what is actually required and what is at stake is not adequate. So the current AI players who are more influential in multiple ways are able to look at who is in a position to influence the policies. They are able to influence them and thereby get things in their advantage.
Sure.
that's very true, actually. Yes, I'm seeing them influence the policies. And I
Yeah.
hear from President Trump that copyright should be accepted. And you know what? All of these boils down to the investors who put pour money into this technology, right? So, like, most likely the leadership in this area are not able to contribute much. The only way we can do it before it becomes really popular like this, we should start getting the rules and regulations laid out through the government policies. That's my take on it.
Awesome, Purnima. Thanks a lot. Purnima is a mother of Suchir. She's the one of the vocal voice. This whole thing has thrived for so long. I think I have seen many people in the internet that she's an Indian mother and she's not going to let this die. So I think I see the fervor of the fight, this whole movement. I think she's one of the major pillar, much more than Balaji. I think she has been vocally fighting since the day this has happened. So hope she will also get to talk in the evening. So I think without much ado, Prachi, Sonia, are there any other thoughts you guys want to share? Are there any other questions anybody else wants to ask Sonia, Prachi on the topic what they discussed? If not, I'll break